Hello there and welcome to my little arty corner. Angela Porter, and I love to draw. And what's more, I love to inspire other people to draw and to share hints and tips and my way of doing things perhaps. And you're all most welcome here. Thank you for all the lovely messages. Thank you for all the thumbs up for videos, for sharing, for liking. I said liking, didn't I? Oh, and subscribing. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. It's completely free, it doesn't cost you anything. It just shows a little bit of support and love for my channel. And I just share a lot of love with you, hopefully, in my videos. So, been missing in action for a few days. I may tell you more. Honestly, I just hope that things will improve in one way or another. I think they are slowly. I mean, but yeah, there's a few things going on. So what I've got here are some little drawings I've done. I've been trying different things out recently, little bits of art from time to time, as I'm finding it really hard to focus on anything much yet again. Brain fog has set in or something. So these are on, I think it's Canson Imagine paper, most of them. And this one, you'll recognise the flowers. It was a variation of the flowers I think in my last video. But decided to do it on a square piece of paper, tile if you wish. Put a border behind them and background. The background was interesting because I actually used a paintbrush and gold paint, gold ink even, to add it. And the pattern changed because I realised I can't work out how it flows. And then I realised later on, it doesn't matter as long as the sections are filled with something similar. And perhaps I should have chosen something like the big dots with small dots around them instead of this kind of floral, sort of like almost basket weave in a way, woven pattern. But I'm quite happy. But what I wasn't happy with was how dull the colours looked. So I ordered myself a bottle of this stuff, which is Mod Podge. It's a water-based glue, sealer and finish. So I've used it as a top coat, as a finish, and it's gloss. It's a gloss luster, and it dries apparently non-sticky, and so far so good. I put them together and they don't stick. If I use gel medium, they remain sticky. So, and I've only given one coat, and there's some brush marks, but I love the way the colours come through. Now then, this is a scientific thing, is that the gloss makes light more reactive, and the more light reactive, reflective, it's a more reflective surface. So more light will be reflected, which means more colour will be reflected. And the thicker the layer, I guess, I don't know. But I'm quite happy with that. And it also makes them more durable, and I've got plans for these. So that was one of mine. This one, I bought a new book by Danielle Donaldson. I've got one of her books. Do you think I can remember the names? I think the second one is Creative Girl. Subtitles and headings, but just look for Danielle Donaldson on the internet, and her art is gorgeous, but she draws in pencil rather than pen, and I've tried that. Let me show you something. This here, and I've started adding colour to pencil drawings, and then I went back and I've added ink. You can see here I've still got the pencil lines in there, and I'm not really sure whether I like the pencil or not. I'll persevere and see what happens. I think my biggest problem here is that I chose to do a large drawing, and I've been intrigued to see this when if I finish it with gloss, how brighter the colours look. I mean, they're not quite the same colours, but the greens are quite similar, and you can see these are sort of dull and matte. So I guess glass, if you put it in a picture frame with glass on the top, it has a similar effect. But this was one here. And yeah, I did do it without the pen lines, and then I went back and added the pen lines afterwards, and I much preferred it. I thought, that's me. This is me. Pencils aren't, but I still want to explore and try. And again, I've coated it with gloss. And although there's a little bit of streaking of some of the gold ink, and a little bit of watercolours, I'm not too bothered by that. But what isn't all that easy to see, but is present when you take a close look, in the background, I don't know whether you can see it, whether it'll be visible on the camera. See if I can get it in a way. don't know if you can just make out little flowers in white. I used a permanent white gel pen. The is it Pilot or Pentel? I can never remember. God, now I've got to try and see the name. Glasses, Angela. Pentel hybrid gel. And that worked really quite nicely. If anything, it made those white bits even more subtle. And the fact that the Mod Podge doesn't make things spread, as long as you're careful with it and you don't overwork it, is a huge advantage. This one I haven't covered with Mod Podge. Yes, I have. I lied. And I got some streaking there because I didn't leave the ink dry long enough where I'd gone over the golds. But I really like this pattern here with the simple colours, and let me just add some light, hopefully, maybe not, with the lovely colours, the pinks and the greens and yellows and gold. Just really simple, and it just works for me. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do today. I've got a couple of ideas in my head. We'll see what happens. And this is one that I've just finished, and I just created it. I don't know whether anybody's ever done it before or since. And you know what? I don't even care. I'll be back. I'm just going to go and get something. Ooh. There we are. Talk about forward planning, eh? Two things. Needed a bigger brush, because to add the Mod Podge, the bigger the better. This is a silicone matte, and you can see the paint just flakes off it when it's dry, which is great. And we'll get the Mod Podge open, and I'll Mod Podge this. Also, this does not take long to dry. It's dry. It seems to be dry within a couple of minutes, or just a few minutes, depending on the warmth in the world. So I'm just picking a generous amount up on my brush, not too much. I'm just going to quickly paint this over, and I used watercolours on this and a copper pen touch permanent marker, metallic marker from Sakura. This is already sticky and icky. Pop that in a jar of water I've got there so it doesn't dry on the brush. It goes on a little bit milky. I haven't done a very good job of the brush lines, but you haven't got a lot of time to work with this because it dries so quickly. You could water it down, but if you water it down, then you've got the added problem that any water-soluble media will move. I used watercolours on these. They're a set of Paul Rubens professional quality that I have lurking here. I have many kinds of watercolours. And I don't know if you can see how, even as it's drying a little bit, those colours show up even more. Even when they're pale, they just get that intensity, all because of the gloss finish. So I'll pop that out of the way for a mo and just let that dry. Let me get my silicone mat out of the way. Advertised for baking. Yeah, so I had 3 of them. I was going to use them as backgrounds for my videos, but they're very, very bright. So, could do this one, could do that one. Let's have a look at doing this one perhaps. And I've got this here, so I don't think that's the right shape. Let me go and have a look for another piece of paper. Oh, while I'm at it, I forgot I had these. This was a pattern, I can't remember what it was called. I saw it yesterday on Pinterest, and I thought I'd have a play around with it quickly this morning. Well, I did when I woke up in the middle of the night for a while until I was ready to go back to sleep. And this one is alternating the fragments. This one is having the fragments all going in the same direction. And I quite like it, but I haven't quite got it drawn. This is a better drawing than this one. But I suppose if you know the Zentangle pattern Senna, it's a kind of variation on Senna, but Senna is a fragment. You've got ridges where it's bright and then shadows here where things disappear underneath one another. Not sure what I'm going to do with those yet. Don't have any more in here. The only other things I've got in here are pieces of, this is watercolour paper that I've just played around with watercolours to see what colours and patterns. I can get some of them I've added gold ink in them, so I've got gold ink in the background. This is lovely. I love those colours. Not that I'll ever remember what they are, but you know, they're there. Those were the Art Nouveau set, the Canson Imagine, actually. And was that one? No, I don't think that one was. But this is something that, bear with me, because this will make sense, something that Danielle Donaldson suggests in books is you play with your watercolours, you use scraps of paper just to try colours out, mix colours together that you wouldn't ordinarily mix, see what happens. That's the that one and this one. I think these are all the Canson Imagine, the Kuretake paints that are Art Nouveau sets, and just see what happens. And then you've got them either as sources for colour inspiration, for artwork, you know, for palettes, or these can then be used for other artworks or to be incorporated in other artworks as collage pieces. And yeah, you can imagine what my head has done with that. So let me have a look for a squarer piece. I've got this one, which we'll do. We'll do that thing there. These are lovely though. I'm going to so enjoy creating things with them. They're lovely on their own, but just to create, you know, to tear the edges and rip them up, which sounds awful, but you can always make more. Now today I've got a change in pens. These are, look at this, 11 minutes and I haven't stopped rabbiting yet. These are Platinum Preppy pens. They're inexpensive. I think I paid about £8 to £10 each for them. And they do an extra fine 02, and this one is a fine, which is an 03. They come without an adapter for filling in, for filling them from an ink bottle. So they have cartridges, and all the cartridges are non-waterproof. I think you can get platinum carbon ink, but you have to take them out. You have to wash the pen out every time you use it, which is a bit of a pain. So I don't see the point of having that in cartridge form unless you're going to use all the cartridge that day. So I bought some fillers, which were almost as much as the pens, but they seem to be in very short supply in the UK. And both of these have got the Dokumentus Ink in. So I'm going to use the 03 to draw my grid. So I'm not going to draw this in pencil, I'm just going to wing it. These, they may be inexpensive, but I can tell you this, they've got a very smooth nib. They don't seem to get stuck on. I can feel the difference between these and the TWSBIs. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love my TWSBIs. In fact, I love all my fountain pens. I have got loads. It's ridiculous. I'm going to have a mass clear out some point in time. Not clear out, but sort them out and get them all in one place together so I can see what I've got and what I can use. But sometimes I feel the TWSBIs seem to pick up or stick to the paper a bit more. I mean, this may just be because with these I've only ever really used smoother paper to draw on. Now, this column here is a bit narrower than this one. I'm not bothered. I know this is taller than it is wide, so I'm going to draw hopefully squarish areas. So I'm starting on the ends with squares, and then in the middle can I get 3? I think I can. There and there. So I've got this happening. Okay, so if we have a look at this, I've alternated the patterns in the squares. Okay, so I'll start by drawing these ones, and I may do a variation on them for my sanity, but I'm going to draw in a diagonal way. So I'm drawing like a bridge almost, the symbol for a bridge that you'd see on a map. And I'm just going to do this along this diagonal. There is a reason I'm working in diagonals, and you'll see why in a moment. Then I don't want to put them in that box, I want to miss that one, so I'm going to do this diagonal now. And go here. Then I'm going to miss this one, start here. Something tells me I should have started closer to the bottom, but I think this ink will dry quickly enough. No, I've smudged a bit. Not to worry, it happens. And then I've just got this one to do, so I will turn that because I will smudge otherwise. So we've got them all going like this. Now then, I'm now going to do the part that crosses under. So you have to imagine that it goes under and then flares out. I didn't do a flare out on that one. I'll do these across now because that risk or minimises my possible smudging of them. I did them diagonally so I got things in place first, that's all. But you can do them all horizontally. It's just sometimes I can get distracted and forget I had to miss a square, as we all do. Having said that, sometimes I do it horizontally, but say there is no one way to draw a pattern. It's whatever rhythm or way of working works best for you. Always. So the last couple of days, few days, I'm not sure when I saw you last, I think it was Sunday, I've been so tired again and lacking a lot of focus and a lot of oomph in life. And also, you know, odd things have happened. I think it was Sunday because Monday I had plans to go out, and that was yesterday. I did have plans to go out and go to a laundrette and then go and sort out a washing machine, but that just didn't happen. It was absolutely hammering down yesterday and I didn't wake up until nearly midday. Today I didn't wake up until after 10 o'clock and I'd gone to bed relatively, you know, reasonable time, and I just don't know why I need to sleep so long. It's, you know, in my book I'm getting a bit ridiculous here. Now I'm going to leave that as the basic structure for these. Then in these other ones I'm just going to pop in a square inside, trying to leave about the same size border for each box, and I'm perhaps leaving a generous border, which is fine by me. I don't mind generous borders. It means I'm less likely to add colour and make a right pig's ear of it. With these cross pieces, I've tried to get them so it looks like they would meet up together. So there's sort of like a consistency in where they go. I may not have got it perfect, but I've tried. And by drawing this in, it looks like they would join up behind these squares, which, you know, with the border around the square makes me quite happy. I guess we could continue to add these kinds of crossing overs, and perhaps instead of having this box there, we could go the other way and have the upper diagonal going this way, and then we'd get a cross-hatched, you know, a woven pattern. Or I could do them within the boxes. That could be fun. But I think it's quite nice sometimes to have variations on a theme. So this is our basic pattern going here, okay? So I've got these sections here. Now that is bugging me. I'm just going to tidy it up just a little bit. Got some places where I'll need to join lines, which is fine. We can go around and adjust those as we see them and notice them. That's never a big problem. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change to the O2 pen. God blimey, that's got fluff on it. Looks like something from my Welsh blanket, my Welsh wool blanket, which is fine. It'll be fine. That's okay. So this is an O2, so it's slightly finer. I don't know whether we'll notice much difference, but if you think about the difference between an O1 and an O2 micron, you notice the difference. So I'm going to go around and I'm just going to round these inner bits on these crossing lines, just to give that feeling that they're soldered in place. I don't know if I'm going to do it elsewhere with these. And yeah, I did turn it round so I avoid putting my hand in the ink, hopefully. I've got a bit of an overspill of a line here, so I'm just going to adjust this with the solder so that it looks more like the line straight and there's nothing going over it. So I'll do the same with there because I did the same thing. Adding ink to hide the crimes, as it were, to adjust imperfections so they're no longer highly visible to anybody who's looking, is something you can do. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to trick people into thinking, oh, that was deliberate. Yeah, there we go. So that's my basic grid. Excuse me while I have some water. Okie dokes. So now, if I have a look at this, I've got this lovely kind of pattern going on here. Awful lot of black in it. But let's have a look at how I do that. So what I'm going to do in these is I'm going to draw curves in the corner like this. I'm going to do that in each one. So I'm starting about halfway along the line and then going about halfway to the other one. I'm not measuring it. I'm doing it by sight, which means they may end up being a bit wonky in places. But do you know what? I'm fine with a bit wonky. I say that often, being a wonky kind of person. Anyway. And they're hand drawn, so you could use measuring instruments and all sorts to do this. But that makes it very mechanical and very non-human looking. And I like the little imperfections that hand drawing gives. Yeah, I do draw things digitally from time to time. It depends on what is expected of me or what kind of art I'm doing. So I much prefer to draw mandalas, for example, the circular patterns that I love to do. I prefer to draw those digitally because it saves an awful lot of time and a lot of frustration if you make a mistake. You know, if you smudge ink or don't get the repetition of a pattern right. So here I'm varying this. So instead of putting a box inside, I'm putting lines on the outside. And I will do something inside these. But this gives me that little bit extra room in the centre for detail. So yeah, and yesterday it rained pretty much all day as well here in the, in this part of the world and overnight. It's not raining currently, but the sky is full of grey clouds and I think we've got rain forecast because it's, what is it, 18 degrees? Oh, the computer says it's 16 degrees out. That means that it's feeling a bit humid here. And with that comes that heaviness in the air. And the feeling that I could do with a really good storm, though I'm not quite sure the drains and so on will cope. I've had so much warm weather, hot weather, dry weather for quite a while that the land is, the top surface of the soil is hard, so a lot of the water is running off. I know we had a power cut in the night because my computer was off when I woke up this morning. It's set to go to sleep. So I often put a sleepy meditation, a sleepy story on as I'm dozing off. And I set, it's usually on YouTube, so I set it that there'll be no follow-on video or whatever. I can't remember what you call it. No, it stops there. And then my computer goes to sleep after a short while. And, but it had gone off. So I don't know when and how, but it had. Okay. So that's looking interesting. Now these little corners here, I think I might just fill them in like this and perhaps put some black right in the corner. Now I am not going to count the number of lines. I know, shock horror. But I'm going to try and keep the number of lines, or the lines, about the same distance apart. So unless people are insistent on counting lines, they'll look pretty consistent, hopefully. So with all that, let me turn it upside down and work my way down. That'll be better. With all the rain over the last couple of days, I don't know if there's been flooding locally. I haven't heard of any, but then I don't really pay much attention to news. I do know a couple of years ago we had terrible, about 3 years or so ago now, terrible flooding in the town. It was absolutely devastating. In the main street through the town, the water was a few feet deep. And people were warned not to go there, but you saw people in these big 4x4s thinking they could manage it, only to find out they got stuck. And things like containers, shipping containers full of stuff had been washed off the land and into the river, and were flowing down the river. And our rivers, it's a fair size, but it's not huge. But they come a long way down the river and smashed into bridges, destroying some really, seriously damaging and potentially permanently, having ancient, important bridges, part of the history of the area, having to be possibly demolished. And they've all been restored or are being restored still now. So it's not an easy job to restore a lot of these old buildings. But there were vans and cars had been washed in the river, people's houses flooded out, businesses as well. It was just before COVID hit as well. And it was just, it's devastating. Where I grew up, the house I lived in used to regularly get flooded. Water would flow down the drive from the road, which was at a higher level than our house, and would rush through. Water would come up from sewers, drains. It'd often come down in the morning to find wellies lined up on the stairs, and you knew what had happened overnight. And the water was still coming in, and there was water sort of like gushing out of electrical sockets like fountains. It was, a number of times that happened, and the smell was absolutely disgusting, as you can imagine. So, a number of times furniture had to be replaced. But oddly, the colour television that we had, which my mother had won in a competition on the back of a cornflakes packet, survived all of this and continued working for donkey's years, for about 30, 40 years. We were the first people in the street to have a colour television, not because we were rich, because my mother was lucky enough to win that competition. I can remember, because, even as a child, I was nearly 6. I was, a couple of months away from being 6 years old when the moon landings happened, Apollo 11. And I was very well aware at my age that was, going to be very important, very historic. And I loved stars and the sky and astronomy and things like that. And I begged and begged and begged to be allowed to stay up and watch it. Because here in the UK, for me, it was quite late at night. I know in America it was all timed for about midday. So which part of America they timed it as midday, I don't know. So it would have been, I know it was quite late. We had a television, colour television, so everybody in the street was invited in to watch the moon landings in colour. And I did have a chuckle because even at 6 I knew that the footage from the moon landings would be in black and white. And although I don't remember the sights and the sounds, I remember the excitement and the wonder and the awe of it even now. And I knew how remarkable that was in so many ways. Okay, now in the middle here, I'm going to do a simple cross of these sections. Just going to put a cross in the middle of the ones I've been working on. We'll come back to the other ones now. And this kind of pulls in this kind of shape into here. I haven't got the space to do, well, probably would have actually, to have lines crossing over in this kind of way. But for now, this will do quite nicely. So yeah, fortunately, the flooding through the house stopped. They sorted it out. My older sister told me that actually the contractors who built the houses, because we moved into a new build house on a housing estate, had cut corners, and our house, for some unknown reason, they decided not to connect to the sewer system. So all the sewage was going down. We'd only been there for a couple of months, was going somewhere but going nowhere. I only found that out a couple of weeks ago, which is bizarre. Just thinking, I was very young then, so it wouldn't have made any sense to me, but I think it took them many years to work that one out. So it got sorted and dealt with. But there would still be flooding because a culvert at the top of the street would overflow and water would come down the street. Sort of runoff water, not sewage. And that continued for a long time. Now, I've just added some extra ink to the outside border here, so I'm going to do that on all of them. Because I don't know why I did that, but it would look odd if that's the only thickish line on the outside, or line with some weight to it. So I'll just go around and do it on all the sides. How to create a pattern out of an error or mistake. You just repeat what you've done. And then it looks like part of the pattern and deliberate. And that is how sometimes you find beautiful variations on a pattern. There we go. So that's that there. Now then, I'm thinking here that I have these circular shapes here. Now I could have them coming down this way or going up this way, but I think what I'm going to do with these, trying to work out where I'm going to go, is I'm going to fill these with perk. So I just think that here I've got lots of little circles, but here I just think that I'll do bigger circles, and that again, we know it ties in the circularity of this pattern in the corner. I think it's crescent moon, isn't it? So just used in a slightly different way. So I'll do all the ones going across, then I'll turn my tile to get the ones going in the other direction, because it'd be easier to draw that way. And I just like this. It will add enough black to add some dimension here, perhaps, and some perkiness from the perks. So I'm going to try to put 4-5 perks in each section, which isn't that hard actually. There may be some times like here where I'm going to have to squeeze a little one in, but it'll be fine. I just wasn't going to try and make every one of the crescent moons have exactly the same number of lines, auras, if you will, because that would be a bit daft in my book. Lately I've been noticing things that we say and I'm thinking, why do we say that? Where did that come from? You know, the idea of me going out yesterday and even today went out the window. I mean, what does... I know what it means is you get rid of it, but why out the window? You know, it just just wasn't going to happen. And I'm just thinking, where does that come from? And now in my book, what does that mean? Where does that come from? I know what it means. I know it means, as far as I'm concerned, but where does that come from? I'm just there going, that's a weird thing to say. And yet I've used these idioms, is it, or metaphor? I don't know whether they're idioms, metaphors, whatever, all my life. And yet it's only now I'm going, that's really daft. Why do we say that? So I must remember I need to do some research on that. So, history of such things. I'll have to find out what they're called first. I think they are idioms. No, don't think so. Doesn't feel right. It's common sayings, I suppose. English is a funny language. I think in Welsh, if you want to say, oh, if I was you, the translation is under lady. Yeah. And it means in your place, where you are. I found that an interesting thing as well. So the literal translation is not the same as what the meaning is. Yeah, I'm still carrying on with my Welsh lessons, and I really do need to find some Welsh classes for the autumn that I can go and actually talk with people and practice the spontaneity of coming up with translations and ways to say things, and practice. Because that's the only way it makes sense. It'd be quite fun to do an immersion course where that's all you do is speak Welsh and learn in a short space of time. But I don't think that's going to be possible for me, given work and what have you. So there we're going. Okay. Nearly got this side going. Sunday evening I had to go somewhere, and the storm clouds were gathering. They were amazing. The colour, the steely blue grey colour of storm clouds was absolutely fantastic. It really was. And but on my way home, it was getting close to sunset. It wasn't completely sunset time, but getting there. And there was this one cloud which was grey at the top, and at the bottom was shining golden yellow. And there were patches of a yellowy grey elsewhere, and I just thought it was absolutely amazing. It was glowing in the sky. And then others were kissed by the sun, and you could start to see other colours of sunset beginning to show on them. And that was quite fascinating to me. And I could see the storm, or the torrential rain I was about to drive through from a long distance away. You can see how the light changes, or the visibility changes when rain is being dumped elsewhere. I often see that from my window when rain is coming from the west, because I look towards the west, and you can actually see the line of rain heading my way, and the changing colours and light. There's been times where I've been in sunshine and the opposite side of the valley is being drenched in grey gloom for a while. And I do like that. It does interest me quite a lot. So I like to look at things like that. And of course I was thinking, I wish I had my camera with me. Then I thought, I've got my phone. And then I realised there was nowhere I could stop to take a photograph of it. As always, I was on an A road in the UK, a trunk road we call them. And although there are parking spaces, which you don't get on motorways, none of them were near. And I wasn't going to pull over and chance being caught by a policeman, because look at that, I've put my fingers in that. Darn it. Trying to keep my fingers out the way and it didn't work. Oh well. See what I mean? Over here. honestly. So I have to keep a mental memory or build a word memory up of it. It was beautiful. I can happily say that. And the dark grey clouds I could see really worked well against the sunlit sere grass, the yellow grass and green grass and trees. And whereas in, those kinds of colours can look very dull and uninteresting and very samey in the summer. That's why I don't like the summer. Everything's pretty much the same in many ways, the colours. But when you get something like that with that stunningly glowering grey sky and the sun still lighting the earth below it, the colours sing against the grey, really brings them out. And that's why I guess shading is so important in coloured work, because the greys or the muddy colours of muted colours of shadows are what help the other colours to sing brightly. In a visual kind of way. I mean, they don't sing hymns to me or anything. I'm not sure I'd appreciate that, but I think I was going mad if they did. But just absolutely stunning. See, I appreciate colour, but using it my own way causes me problems. And if you think the Mod Podge is the equivalent of, bringing the shine out from any muted greyness in the image. So I'm happy I remembered that little trick. Thought about it, perhaps I heard it somewhere. So I do watch art and crafts YouTube channels as well. So many good people out there. Particularly like watching people who make journals at the moment. Find it fascinating. I know that I just don't get it. But it's working out how to do it in my own way. And this is where keeping stocks of these pattern tiles and things I think is going to come in going forward. I've got a plan, but I'm not quite sure about it yet. But if it works out, I will share. Perhaps as a way of displaying tiles or making use of them. So I don't know about you, I've got tons of stuff lurking that just lurks in drawers, boxes. Nothing else to do with it, and I want to do something with it. And as I journal, not as much as I used to, but I'm getting back to it, then I might like to do something with that. So this is different to this, but based on the same kinds of basic shapes, starting with the cross and the diamond shape in alternate squares and seeing what happens. Here I've got darkness outside of these along with what looks like little leaves. Here the darkness is coming from the crescent moons, and it looks like they swirl around underneath as well, doesn't it? We've got layers happening here as well. And the perks look quite nice in amongst the crosses rather than these kinds of shapes. I mean, I could have created these shapes there and put perks inside them, but I decided not to. So, similar but different. But, the skeleton of the pattern is the same. I think I said I could have put a square in here and had these inside a square, so it would, to have that as a repeating pattern could be quite interesting. So I shall pop that to one side. I shall put a lid on my pen. Now then, where did I put that one that was meant to dry? Oh, it's over there. So this is the one I Mod Podged at the beginning. And hopefully you remember what it was like and how much more vibrant the colours are. Just with one layer of gloss Mod Podge. I know you can get one that's called glass, which I think is just a finishing one. But I I read some reviews and they say it stays a bit tacky, and I don't want tacky. I want something that's not going to be tacky. This isn't waterproof, so if I was to splash water on it, it would really gungify and would be damaged. But to protect it from touch and wear and smudging of things, I think it'll work quite nicely. No shading on this, I just let the lines do it for me. So there we are. Okie doke, so let me just get, where did I put them? There. I've got my, got these watercolours here. They're in a watercolour pan. These are from Paul Rubens. And for this one, I use this colour, which I think is this brown, whose name I can't remember, mixed with a bit of red. Possibly it could just be that colour. This is the yellow ochre, which is there. And this is a mixture of indigo and I think it's ultramarine or some such colour. So I got a less bright red, because I picked the blue that was it was deep blue, but it was quite bright. So I may use similar colours, or I may go for others. Nope, I don't wash my pans colour out. Oh no. For the crossovers, I think I'm going to go for this one. And if I want this a bit more yellow, a bit more golden, let me go and pick some gold up, or golden yellow. And just pop that in, and I've got enough there to do all of these. I'm just going to try and get a little bit off my brush, and I'm just going to fill this in. I also think the colours that I chose will be, these colours will be quite sympathetic in some ways with the background colour. Now I could use this for the outside of that square, but I'm not going to. What I am going to do to tie this in is I'm going to put gold at the top and the bottom of each of these parts here. Now if I'd done this alone, I could actually alternate them, with the other colours I'm going to do. But I just thought this could be more interesting. I was tempted to put black in one set, and I may still do that. See how I feel when this is all completed. I always put my paints and bottles of water to my left, because on my right I've got more of a tendency to knock them over as I'm reaching for them. So you'll have to excuse my arm going over all the time, but it is how I do things, because I know how clumsy I am. Or perhaps to put it better, my spatial awareness can be quite limited at times. And my sense of where my body parts are in the world can also be an issue. I walk into things on a regular basis and forever bouncing off door frames and knocking my knees on tables and so on, tripping over my own feet. Not literally my own feet, but it's a saying again, isn't it? I prefer to say I can trip over thin air or my shadow. And that's very true, I do. Let's just get these done. So I'm not doing any shading in this. I'm going to create flat washes of colour in the way they would have been done in medieval times, because this pattern is a bit more ornate perhaps than you'd see in medieval illustrated manuscripts. But these kinds of patterns, sort of repeating patterns like this, were used in the illuminations, the decorations, the artwork that accompanied the text as background patterns, filler patterns, and they were called diapers. Not the same as diapers that babies use, but it was there just to fill in that space with luxury often, and often golds were used, and jewel-like colours were very much used. So I'm not going for jewel-like colours because, well, in some ways they're me, but in some ways they're not. And because I've coloured this paper with distress inks, that's why it's got the colours it has. Because there is something nice about working on coloured paper. it sets a tone for your artwork in some ways. Doesn't mean that you can't go back and add colour. I certainly am here. And I enjoy adding colour. But it just means that there's this background colour which will kind of show through in places because it depends how I add colour here. And it will mix in a very small way with the colours I'm adding. So that automatically has started to lift this up. I'm so glad I put the yellow in here because it really does tie these in. And that's the name of the game for me here, is to tie these all together. So I'm going to this reddy colour here, and I might actually just add a little bit more red to it. So let me get this there's lovely rich red over here. So I'm going to add some of that. Make it just a bit redder. Oh, I've just added some browns there. I have. Be fine. Just dab a bit off because there's a bit too much there. And I'm going to use this red to go round the outside here. It's red brown. It's a very rusty kind of colour. It's a bit, reminds me a bit of the red oxide that I love in the Inktense pencils. And yet I could have used Inktense, but I'm not. Because I'm using watercolours for a change. Yeah, I do tend to change the media I use up fairly regularly. It depends what I'm doing, it depends what mood I'm in. And I'm trying to get, used to watercolours and using them more often in work, water-based media. You can see how much the colour fades as it dries as well. But that's easy to sort out, so I can always go back with another layer of colour. Again, this is just starting to bring out elements of a pattern, so I want to use this colour in the other one. My problem is in the here, so I put it in these, it's always going to touch up against this, and I don't want that. I want it to be quite separate, so it is what it is now. So I may use green or brown. Now here I've got that smudge of ink, but I think we might be all right here. So I'm just going back over that, see how that one dries compared to the others. There's a bit of a messy corner there, so I just wanted to go back over it and blend it in. So I think that one's going to dry more intense, so I'll be able to go back over the other ones. I'll just finish the ones down here first. There'll come a point where I stop doing all of this, because I'm at 53 minutes video. I'm beginning to get a really rotten headache here. It's a bit grim. Could just be the humidity and just the feeling that there's a good storm is needed. I don't think storms are forecast for today though. Could be wrong, haven't checked. The other good news is I got to see the start of another volcano yesterday. I just happened to turn on to a channel where they were broadcasting live from Iceland. And I just caught the early stages, not the very start, I had to wind back a little bit in the live stream, but certainly the early stages of the eruption of a new volcano, close to where the last two were, in Geldinga, yeah, Iceland, on the Reykjanes Peninsula, not far from Reykjavik. Well, about 35 miles as the crow flies, I think. So that's all exciting, and it's a fissure eruption, but hopefully it'll end up as one volcanic cove, as the last one did. Actually, the first one had a series of eruptions, and one sort of like fissure or cone became the dominant one. And I hope it'll last a bit longer than the last one did. The first one that I saw, which was in the early part of the pandemic, lasted for about 6 months. The last one only lasted for a number of weeks, which is quite sad, really. So I'll need to check in on that soon, because I'm not going to sit all day every day watching it, but I'd just like to see how it's progressing. And hopefully they'll have some cameras that have got sound, and that means that I can fall asleep at night to the sound of an erupting volcano. Which sounds crazy, but it's like thunder or rain. It's just really soothing. Because it's not close up. It's it's a distance away for safety, obviously. But you get to hear the booms. And if it's close enough to lava that's cooled but still moving, you get the tinkling of the volcanic glass that's formed as it cools. Quick cooling creates a kind of obsidian, or a rock that's like obsidian, or pumice, which have a lot of, when they tumble, it sounds a lot like glass, which is wonderful. It's very musical sounding, which you wouldn't expect, would you? And yeah, I got a thing about volcanoes and how the earth works. Yeah, I'm curious about a lot of things. I don't think I'll be going to visit this one though. Still too soon for me to think about travelling anywhere by myself. Still don't have that confidence in me. And with the intense fatigue I have, still, it's a bit of a mare really. But I will get there. There will be no doubts about that. Now you can see how vibrant the colours are here. This is a really messy corner. As they dry, the colours become less vibrant, but I consider that the Mod Podge brings those colours back. So if you look at this one, this is paler than these, but you can see how it's brought the colours out, just that bit. Much nicer. I like shiny. Okay, in these centre ones here, I'm going to put some blue, and this blue is nice and thick here, so I should be able to get a good layer of blue down. So I think blue and yellow, they're complementary colours, so they work well side by side. And again, this isn't a bright jewel-like tone, but it is just nice. Now, I'm not going to do all of these. I'm going to do some of them because the video will get very long otherwise, but I'm going to do enough of these so you get an idea of what this is going to look like. So, hopefully. Oh, look, I didn't do the yellow in this one. That's okay, we can sort that. Just need to clean my brush after I've popped this blue in. Quite got to the corners on some of these, so I'll just go back and fill the little gaps in. We get rid of that, pick some of the yellow up. I'll just pop that one in here and we'll have, that's better. And perhaps just put some blue now over on this one. Now this blue isn't going to touch the perks, so I think I might use blue on those. So I'm just going to get some more going there. So let's have a look, and I'm going to just paint them in blue, and I'll use highlights to bring out pattern, or not put dimension on them more than anything else. Oh, look at that, I made a right pig's ear of that one, didn't I? Use the remaining colour here. So even if they're slightly lighter in tone, see if I can just pick this up. Hopefully I'll be able to. I'll have to go back there with yellow, but not just yet. I'm going to give these a chance to dry. This here could do with a bit more blue. That'll be fine. This one as well, could do with a bit more. Remember, it looks quite dark when it's wet, and it looks like the lines have disappeared. But the reality is they haven't, they're still there. But they just need a bit of help to bring those perks out. And again, I'm going to use white pen or gold to bring some put some highlights in just to lift that. I may use black to put some stippling at the base of them just to bring them out. I'll do this one here. And then we've got enough here for you to see what the pattern will be like, hopefully. I am going to have to mix some more paint to do the rest of them, so hopefully I won't get the colour too dissimilar. But if I do, well, it'll still be a blue, similar blue, so it'll be fine. There we go, so you've got an idea there. Now, in these middle sections, I'm going to go back to using, I think I want to use yellow. This, oh gosh, I didn't clean this off very well. It'll be fine. So let me just pick some more of this yellowy gold up, pop that in. Get some water running in there, get rid of some of the paint, and I'm going to put it in just next to the black. I'm going to leave a line there without any colour in, I think. So we're going to leave a border around that square in the middle, that diamond shape in the middle, because I think a little bit more gold might be needed in these. This is quite intense and I'm getting some clouding of my lines, but I've noticed that the Mod Podge cleanses them up for me. It cleanses them up. And I could really do with another colour there for this section. And I'm trying to think what colour I would like. I've used blue. Red, I don't really want the red. Well, the red could actually meet, couldn't it? Because we've got a nice strong line there. So we're using red, yellow and blue in this. Primary colours. So I could have used these to mix a green if I wanted to. But I haven't done that. And perhaps if I do just one layer of this colour, it will look sufficiently different to the outside border that we'll be able to see it as different, not joined up to. That one will need a bit of a smoothing out because I made a bit of a pig's ear. Why do we say that? It makes a bit of a pig's ear. Why are pig's ears considered messy? Or, you know, a bit of a muck-up? I really don't know. Why do we say that? It's another one for me to add to my list of things to look at. Pig's ears. Why? Where did that come from? So this is where I'm going to leave it in terms of colour, but yeah, none of them are running with water, so I can close that up and pop that out the way. I have got here I got this gold pen. No, I'm going to use white. I'm sure I've got a white. I'm sure I had a white gel pen here. Can't see one. Okay, we'll go with gold. Use this one. Oh no, it's over here. It's underneath this. Let's go with white because white will stand out on this. So on these, I want the lightest colour at the middle. So I'm going to put white there and just enough dots to take it down part of the way. And that implies then the bottom is the shadowed part. like so. So that's actually, that works really nicely. I like that. Good job, Angela. I do. And even though I haven't finished this, shall I Mod Podge what I've done? I don't know. What do you think? So I'm going to put white in the centres of these, yellow and on the blue, just to bring that out. Just one dot there. Let's do this one as well. Pardon me wishes now, I've just done 4 or 6. Squares. I always forget how powerful just that number can be for an idea. And they'd have been bigger as well, so we'd have had more detail. As you can see there, I haven't put yellow in that section. Okay. Alright, so I've got white on there. I've got some white on this, and I'm going to put some white, oops, come on, in these sections, just to put some highlights in. There. I'll do the same here. Into the red as well, because we want a highlight there. And fewer as we go down towards that black section, because remember it's dropping away from us. That black section is going to be the lowest point here and in shadow. Just put the white in there. Going over the black lines here, and I can't seem to help myself. This one, I'm going to put some white lines or white dots part way over the top, and then leaving a little gap from where they cross over, and put some dots to one side like that, as if there's some weight here, so this one is kind of pushing this down and the other side is bulging up a little bit. These do look very bland and uninteresting, so I think I might just pop some little dots in there just to bring out that cross shape. So again, it ties it in with this. Just rotated it by 45 degrees. So that is what I'm doing. No shading, I'm using pure highlight for that to bring it out, keeping it simple like they would have done in Medieval Illuminated Manuscripts. I will continue with this once I've got the video uploading and so on, and I just hope you've enjoyed it, and that I'll put that one there so you've got a comparison for the patterns I've used. And the black really does make it very dramatic, doesn't it? So it's you know, black can play I love black as a way of bringing colours out, but the colours here just work in a slightly different way than the black does, and you can see now the blue's dried, the black lines are quite evident. So thank you for joining me. Look after yourselves. Please have a go with one or the other. I think you'll be able to work out how I created these. They're just sort of like little leaf shapes that go up to the corners of that inner square. And I did put gold round the outside of them. But the other thing, let me just finish, Mo. The other thing I love about Mod Podge is brought out that subtle texture here and the colour of the distress inks, and hasn't shifted them. I haven't lost any of that. I'm so chuffed. I didn't know whether it was going to work or not, but it has. Mod Podge is my best friend. Well, one of my best friends. Artsy friends in terms of media. And I love it. So thank you for joining me. And I hope you give these a go. I'd love to see what you create, whether you do one or the other of these versions or whether you take it in a whole different direction yourself. And I look forward to seeing you again in another video sometime soon. I can't say when because I haven't even started Daydreams yet. I'm so behind with myself. But if I keep falling asleep all the time, I'm never going to get it done. And I don't know how to do it when it's crazy. So anyway, I'm moaning. I'll see you again soon. Until then, take care. Be well, be safe, and above all else, be happy and be creative. Ta-ta for now.